We're talking missing players and missing paychecks this week on the Indy Ball Report Podcast. Back again, episode 225. I'm Nick. Ryan's moved from the basement and the walls up into the attic, so he's getting closer to escaping, but he has yet to manage to do so successfully.
I had to make some moves so that I could just absolutely destroy my cell phone over the past week by getting some good signal and then texting everyone in the world, apparently. Specifically in North Carolina.
You know, there was a lot of action in North Carolina this week. And of course, you know, everything has to happen like the first 2 days I'm on my vacation, right? Like, that was the neat thing this past week where we recorded on Wednesday so that way we'd have everything all taken care of and put together so that way we wouldn't have to worry about this. And then like Thursday news comes out, then Friday news comes out, and then like over the weekend everything goes to hell. So, you know, it was a fun week.
Yeah, that's my bad. That's on me.
I think it's more on the people not paying their staff more than you, but you know, interesting way to put the hand up on it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just what accountability looks like.
It could be. So I guess on that note, we should probably jump into the headline news and the part of the cold open that refers to missed paychecks, because coming from Gastonia this week, there was a bit of, what'd you say, a major break over there would be one way of putting it.
I think that's fair. I think, I don't know how you want to even intro this whole mess, but yeah, that would be a fair way of doing it.
Yeah, so...
Or at least describing it, I guess I should say.
Yeah. So then I guess the best way to kind of enter the foray into this whole Gastonia situation, which just a quick context and overview is, game got postponed due to a player protest. Later comes out players weren't being paid, which then kind of spiraled into a lot of people besides the players weren't getting paid, and it goes extremely deeper than that. That's just a very looking down at it from 5,000 feet above kind of view of it. But luckily for me, I have the guy that did pretty much all the heavy lifting here today in my attic to go ahead and break everything down. So I guess just a general timeline to get everybody up to speed and a general overview of what the situation is over there in Gastonia.
Yeah. Again, I mean, I guess if we're talking a timeline even of when it hit my radar, it was just a tweet. And God, if I can even find it at this point, I don't know if I can. Well, basically someone tweeted at me just saying like, hey, there was a delay before the Gastonia and Blue Crabs game in Southern Maryland last night. You know, weather was fine. It was just a delay. Do you got any idea what happened there? So I text my usual people. One of my usual people hit me with can't give an answer there. And I was like, oh, because it was a person who would know, you know what I mean? Like, that means they know and they are not giving the answer. And that kind of started at least the process of digging and realizing that there might be something going on here. So what it had turned out to be was the players had not received their paychecks that day. Previously, it sounds it's becoming evident that they had not received their paychecks on time, and there was some squirreliness with it, or just not the way things should be handled when it came to their pay. And that's why it was sort of immediately a red flag, and players were like, hey, no, like, we're not going to play until you give us our checks that are due today. Now, when I started digging into that, and I have sort of a way of doing it a little behind the scenes if I'm working on something that seems, you know, it needs some further sources, I'll usually tweet out bits and pieces of what I'm getting to see if anybody will reach out with additional sourcing and early corrections and things like that to kind of nudge me in the right direction. Mm-hmm. And maybe I'll get one or two people to reach out. And I think within 3 hours, I had probably 20 people contact me. with details about what was going on in Gastonia. And the story they told was very, I'm not going to go into it. I'll say up front, like, you can go over to the Indy Ball Nation YouTube channel because it's a 40-minute long sort of expose on what's going on. But yeah, it was, I'm trying to think the best place to start. What became evident was there are financial issues in Gastonia. We'll start with there. And that has been reflected in the fact that they have not been paying people on time. They have not been paying people, period. They, as far as, how bad that's going, is they, in response to all this coverage, said to a local news source that, the paychecks were delayed for a few staff members, which wasn't accurate. But they'll be paid by Tuesday this week, and they were not. And as of today, I'm not sure. I got to hear whether or not people have actually been paid today. Today being Friday. So it's like that badly. Even with all eyes, they weren't able to get that going. And to keep it general, it just tells a story of a very uninvolved, seemingly, owner who has appointed his girlfriend to be the COO, and she has not only no real idea what to do with any of this, but also she's like actively not doing things the right way, not treating people well. It just, even in response to the story, like, she was very passionless and evasive about things. She wasn't able to confront what's going on. It's fascinating, and it really continued to just keep stretching and stretching and stretching. There's now questions being asked by a lot of people about the LLCs that she and Brandon Bellamy have, Brandon being the owner, what's going on with that, because he's a real, supposed to be a real estate mogul, but he is at a point now where he will not be paying the team's salaries for the rest of the year. The Atlantic League will be covering that, which has been confirmed through players and people around the team. That is being questioned. I'm trying to think what else came up in this. It was confirmed recently in other news articles as well, they owe the city and county over $100,000. Like, it is just like everywhere you look, it's like that SpongeBob clip where he's like ripping down like the walls and the wallpaper, and there's just like stuff that's piling out of it.
Yeah. It
was like issues, like whether it was people they owe money, or stories of misbehavior, or mishandling employees, or mishandling vendors. They owe local businesses a ton of money. So it just sounds kind of disjointed and vague. It's because it's really hard to go into everything, and I don't want it to seem like, if I don't want to then basically go into all of the evidence I have on things the way I did in the video, which then takes a bunch of time. I don't want to necessarily name certain things because it would involve explanation, I guess, of how I know things and what that means. So again, if you want the full details, you can go over to the YouTube channel. But the point is, they appear to be very much out of money. They appear to have been lying about that for quite some time, including to the city, who has not only paid for that stadium before, by the way, the Honey Hunters and Brandon Bellamy were involved. So that was before this organization. It's not like they were like the Honey Hunters were like, oh, build us a stadium. They built a stadium and then attracted this organization in, run by Brandon Bellamy. But there have been a number of deals like tax breaks and whatever else that have been going on, subsidies, things like that. And deals too, they lease the stadium from them, and they owe them quite a bit of money at one point. And I'm not sure, they haven't played at home yet. They'll be playing at home Tuesday, but it was confirmed again by local news sources that the police and first responders have not been paid. So they have now officially, like, the police chief has been like, yeah, we're not going to be working security for you anymore with off-duty officers. So it's going to be interesting to see how a lot of this stuff starts playing out. But in short, it is a mess of misbehavior, poor finances, misbehavior around those poor finances, and just generally mishandling of an organization. It really has reinforced the importance of having the right people in charge of things. And Gastonia just never has seemed to have that. That's for the most part. The employees at the lower levels are great. They were very forthcoming with things. The ones I spoke with, former employees as well. I was there on opening night, and from that point on, I've always had a positive opinion of the people they have on the ground level. We've talked nonstop about Brady Salisbury and his just impact on the on-field product that they have there, and the fact that the guys are still putting together a great season with all this going on is incredible. So really, this is more a look at Brandon Bellamy and his COO. In the end, it's really a reflection on those two. It's not actually a look into like the ground floor employees. I've seen some people try and point the finger. a lot of redirection to the city. And if you're interested, I do think the city probably rushed into this. The city had a very successful organization before, run by Jesse Cole, who runs the Savannah Bananas now. Yeah. There's a lot of misinformation around the actual community of Gastonia about what happened there. It seems to me that Jesse had sold that organization knowing he was going to move to Savannah and take this project on with what would become the Bananas. Yeah. And the new group, they could not solidify one way or another. They could not solidify a deal with the city for the new stadium that was already in the works. The old stadium was not going to hold up. And basically, so there's a lot of they shouldn't let the Grizzlies leave. There's a lot of cloudiness in the local conversation. A lot of really bad reporting from local news has not helped.
Makes it seem like it was an either or type situation where it's like you could have had the Grizzlies or you could have had the Honey Hunters as they are now, and they picked wrong when it was not really. That was never one option that was on the table.
Yeah, again, yes, that's really exactly part of it. The either or aspect. And additionally, there's this weird perspective of, I've been thoroughly impressed by the people of Gastonia, how forthcoming they've been, how bold they've been, how willing they've been to trust me and share with me, and to trust that it wouldn't completely blow up, who they were, because most people have some sort of money tied in with this, team, and they don't want to get burned by that. But I will say there is also a lot, the Honey Hunters, it was the first or the only African American majority owner of a pro baseball team in the country. The Honey Hunters name calls back to I believe it was a freed former slave, if I recall. There was a racial tie-in on that in a community that is very diverse.
I remember that too.
Yeah. And there's just a lot of people who are kind of they put a team in the middle of the city and there were all these tie-ins to diversity or whatever. And that's what you're going to get. And that's not what this is. That's misdirection. That's not understanding what's happening here. That ballpark's really cool. I think they're doing a lot of things right with it. They did a lot of things right with it. Did some things wrong, neither here nor there.
Like a comedy show?
I think, yeah, bro, that's a whole other can of worms. But I'm talking the team's batting cage being on the concourse is one. But I guess what I'm trying to say is the fingers are somewhat getting pointed at the whole concept and pointing at the city for the concept. But I have talked to actually a couple of prospective owners just in the past few days. They are interested in what's going on, and they do think it's a market that could succeed with good, intentional ownership who understands the community and gets involved the way these owners have not. Also, there's a lot of finger pointing at just the city of officials who've made the decisions. The city paid $26 million plus to build that stadium, and they were, roasted for that. But while I don't necessarily agree with public funding of a stadium, I do see from the conversations I've had, there's some talk about whether certain people knew other people beforehand, and that is above who I've spoken to. The people I spoke to seem to have entered this, the city employees, the city government, elected officials, in a very sincere way. They're really upset and heartbroken that this did not work out. They feel like they've dragged people into something and allowed something to happen where they were sold a bill of goods and vouched for it to other people. I think this was a genuine effort to improve an area that needed a little bit of a bump, and the fact that it went sideways sucks. So it's a little disappointing to see a lot of sort of misguided reaction to this, but it is very encouraging also to see a lot of people willing to chime in and speak up about this, but also keep continuing to encourage the team in a way to keep moving. And now the stadium's there, so someone's going to have to fill it eventually. So it's going to be very interesting. So that was all over the place.
Yeah, but I think it was at least a good summary to get going without getting into the weeds on it. Just it's a complex situation because it reaches out there. And I know I got people coming to me too. They were telling me some stuff here. I even had one guy that's like, I'd love to come on the show to talk about it. And I was like,
I've had a couple of those offers too.
Yeah.
No disrespect. It's just that.
Yeah.
There's certain things that I also, because I've gotten a weird high level understanding of it, that I knew I couldn't get into or shouldn't get into because either it's a little bit of conjecture or whatever. And I was worried that even if I'm 90% sure of something if I can't prove it, or it hits that 10% where it's just not accurate, if it's not a key thing, it could take away from the key things. Because I was in a very particular situation where almost nobody was willing to go on the record on some things.
Yeah.
And because of that, so many people had to stay anonymous that I made everyone stay anonymous because that makes it hard to pinpoint things. But with that, I had to just basically show all of these different sources who have said stuff who I couldn't identify, which does add a question mark to the reporting. And I did not need any false information slipping through as much as I could. I think I had one correction issued on the video. It's fine. It was a minor thing. So, that I've been so careful. But yeah, I've gotten those offers too.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, so you want to try to avoid it, just fanning the flames and making it seem more clickbaity than it really is, because the more you do that, the more you have this, like, that conflict level there, the more it calls into question and the whole report and the whole operation of it there too. So that's why, like, to the couple people that wanted to come on to talk about this, it's like, I appreciate your offer, but I think I'm going to pass on it. It's just, like, I look at, like, what I was told, and it's like, organizationally, I'm probably going to restate a lot of what you said, was, it just seems like it was such, not even like a malice in handling it. It was just disinterest in handling it from the people that should have been the most involved in it. Right. And that led to kind of an interior decay, which led to the point where you're writing bad checks. You're leaving, not just players unpaid, which is obviously a horrible look. And it's really actually making, like, the job of the baseball ops people even more impressive, that you're able to fill in these gaps and get, like, quality players and keep everything afloat, all while having to fight with the uncertainty of not just yourself being paid, but recruiting in guys that, you hope they're going to be getting paid because you've been told one thing, or at least I shouldn't say they've been told one thing. I assume they were told that, we'll be able to pay them, even if that's not really been the case, because we know it was multiple pay periods missed.
Yeah, this is not a short-term thing, for the record. This is going back to, like, late last year. Even before that, some might say. They've not been paying bills since last season, that's for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I know at least for some employees, they missed at least 3 pay periods. I know that much. Yeah. That one I have pretty solid. Yeah, and they've been being paid since November with, like, no direct deposit, physical checks only. And I'm guessing it's been very much done, like, after banks close on Friday a lot of the time, and that, I think, has been their policy, so they can get everything in there. I think that's kind of it. But on the same thing, like, last time paper checks went out, it was only a few people, and, like, if you went to bring your check to the bank on Tuesday, all the Tuesday people, like, they couldn't get their check through. So that's the kind of thing you're dealing with. Is there anything that you want me to hit on, like, that I didn't? Because I am struggling a little bit because it was a lot, and my brain is sort of, I got that Pepe Sylvia thing from It's Always Sunny going on, where it's just like, he's just ripping darts, and, like, Pepe Sylvia, he's got the whole board going, and I don't really know where to give a good summary all the time, without, pulling too many strings off the board, and then all of a sudden this is the episode now. So I mean, this is the kind of headline thing that's going to take charge of the whole episode, which I forgot to mention during the opening, which is, this is not really going to be a baseball show this week. Sorry to disappoint. Would have loved to talk about Florence ending Quebec's, like, 14-game winning streak, which is really impressive, and love to have talked about Lexington currently having 1 win the second half, losing 13 in a row. That would have all been great topics to discuss, including Joey Turtoslavic signing in Ottawa and West Starville winding up in Washington. Those would have been 2 fantastic things to get to at some point. Also, Great Falls, who's low-key good now. Right.
Like that. Like, good for them. Same thing with Rocky Mountain. Like, low-key getting it done. Like, getting it done.
Business. Yeah. New half, baby. Get it going. Rocky Mountain got a little bit hot at the end of the first half, and I was like, let's see.
Yeah.
So at the top of the standings today.
Exactly. So, like, those were all things that we'd love to talk about this week, between Gastonia and a bunch of other stuff in the Atlantic League, most of which is either neutral to good, which is, a pleasant change of pace. And then some other miscellaneous stuff kind of hanging around here that just has to be cleaned up. Like that, there's just not really enough time to do baseball talk. Plus, I just got back from North Carolina about 3 hours ago as we're recording this. So I really don't want to edit a 3-hour podcast again for the third week in a row. So this is going to just be a news show. Next week we'll hit heavy into baseball talk. Probably we won't even
talk
really touch
some ball. Yeah,
like it'll be actually good. It'll actually be fun.
We'll talk ball next week. I think it's also important to note that like this will not be an only Gastonia episode too, because there's certain people who've probably seen the whole video and maybe have been following Twitter, and they're honestly a little bit like me, a little bit Gastonia'd out currently, but I'm trying to stay checked in.
Yeah, and obviously, like what also adds to the dynamic is now there's a little bit of a back and forth, and that helps kind of keep things a little bit fresh with Gastonia. We won't harp on it for too much longer, but it does warrant a large chunk of discussion. It is, major news there. And, as far as like actual ball talk goes, that's next week. And who knows, maybe at one point I swing over to the YouTube channel he keeps plugging and I talk baseball with him at some point over there, like.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, maybe we do that. Maybe we do a live stream. Who knows? But.
Well, is there anything you want me to like expand on, or should I just sort of detail some of the other random stuff that's come up? Not random, but you know what I mean.
I guess let's just detail some other stuff. If there's any key point here that we really need to go back to, I think the general consensus that we've gotten here which is kind of funny. We were discussing this on Wednesday where I think you texted me like, Gastonia is really low on position players. They could have money issues. And I was like,
it was when they had, I think, they
traded
just got rid of 2 dudes for players there are 3 guys for players to be named later. 2 were position players, and it left them with 11, which, that sounds fine, but it's the Atlantic League. So one of them is your designated pinch runner. Yeah. One of them is your DH, which leaves 1 extra guy, and that's going to be your backup catcher.
Yeah. So you don't have any
flexibility. Wait a minute. Yeah. You're like, how are you going to pinch hit? Because it's double hook DH. So if your pitcher doesn't make it 5, your DH is gone. So that's 1 less guy, and you don't have a pinch hitter to rock with.
Yeah. So that was a red flag there. So I think that was kind of like the first mark of it. And then it was on the 22nd where we saw the tweet, which tagged both of us in it, just like, hey, wondering what's up with this. I didn't really care enough. I'm not going to lie. I saw that. I was also like, I'm on vacation. Someone else can handle this. And someone else did handle it. Then it gradually came out that, there is money issues here. Then it all kind of came caving in. The reporting went out on it. And then, what day did you put the video up? Wednesday?
It was Monday night.
Monday night. Okay. I got confused because,
It's all good. It's been a blur.
Yeah. So Monday comes out. The full details come out. Tuesday, then, there was some pushback, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit of pushback on it.
Yeah, local news wasn't necessarily willing to put in some of the effort right away, and it seems that a lot of the local news down there is tied in. I mean, it's not unusual, tied into the professional baseball team at some point. They've worked together in the past, and they know each other. So, yeah, basically, that Veronica Gion, who's sort of in the middle of a lot of this, that was for the first 2 news articles that followed up on this. They both only used her as the source. And she kind of continued what we were learning was sort of a trademark move of like not answering questions directly, only talking about the paychecks, not what was owed to the city, not what was owed to the police, not what was owed to businesses, just the paycheck saying only a few people didn't get paid. And we're really sorry. Baseball teams don't make a profit for like 5 years, but we're working really hard and you should come to our next random Little John concert or whatever. I was like, okay, is that what we're doing? That was when I think a little bit of the sleep deprivation and me just not having any time for that was starting to come through because I started getting a little chippy with the fine reporters of Charlotte, North Carolina's metropolitan area.
Well, to be fair, can you blame them much? They really wanted to be a Panthers training camp, so
Bro, there was multiple who were trash, and like, all right, I mean, look, let's just say it, like, the one, Will Kunkel or whatever the hell his name is, that guy sucked. And, if we're naming names, there's the other guy, Will Lewis, who eventually did a real good report on it. But he got all pissy with me because I called him out for his lazy reporting on day 1. And then he played it off like, oh, well, we were still looking into it. Like, my guy, you were not. And, I don't think we talk on Twitter anymore. That's okay though. But, Yeah, man. Just, the importance of having good local news reporting, by the way.
Yeah.
Not
that's why you need the strong
enough of a priority across the world.
Exactly there. So I think that's the general timeline, the general overlap. Obviously, some of the more finer points you've already went over, but if there's any more, more individual strands that you think need to just be made more just fleshed out a little bit, maybe go for that. If not, I have a couple other things that I could kind of toss in here, but I mean, it's pretty much what we already know. No,
I got you. And the first thing to understand, I mean, again, you can always go back to check the video for some of the depth of it, but I guess I got kind of 3 points I think are worth discussing here. The first point would be the other stuff that's come up that maybe I didn't detail first of all, but it's just that things weren't well run year one, and it seems like Brandon wanted to be real involved then, and it kind of was like, yo, I'm out, putting my girlfriend in charge, she'll be fine, whatever. I think there's a lot of, she expressed to somebody at one point that she's not comfortable talking to him about money issues. Now, that indicates that he has money. We have not seen evidence of that. It's very weird that there's a lot of conjecture around what Brandon Bellamy knows and doesn't know. But what we know as a fact is he spoke to the players in the clubhouse in Southern Maryland, because he's from D.C., after that weekend series. He seems, so we know he knows about this particular issue.
Yeah.
And we know that it's going to be about $50,000 probably per month to pay those players. And we know that he is already intending to not do that for the rest of the season, and the league will cover it. So that kind of indicates that he does know about at least this specific thing, and he does not have the money to do it. So that is kind of shedding some light on what's going on there. Beyond that, whether he was aware of the entire fallout or not, people did try to warn him. Certain aspects of it have that feel of when you see a little kid just in or I used to work in middle school, and all the time you'd see some kid just in such a bad situation, like academically or whatever, like in so much trouble, because he kept trying to cover it up,
yeah,
and made it worse and worse and worse. And it had that kind of feel when it came to Veronica Gion. But at the same time, I got tons of sources, not tons, like 6 different sources, who talk about telling Brandon, usually on their way out the door, what was going on, and him being like, yep, making him feel very heard, apparently very nice, but then doesn't do anything. So that's that part. When it comes to...
Yeah, just to touch on, I just want to touch on each of the points as you get to them, so that way they don't get lost.
Do it up.
Yeah. So it just seems kind of like I don't want to say the word disinterest, and I don't really want to speculate, so I want to try and pick the words carefully here, but it does seem like he was almost hand-waving it off as, oh, it is what it is, it's fine, it's going to be okay, it's going to be whatever. And again, it almost seems like, and this is one issue that I raised online, which was, I'm always skeptical of developers buying a ball club or buying an asset like that, especially when they own the surrounding property. And I think that's something that you touched on too, which was that he owns the team, does not own the ballpark, but owns surrounding property for development. And there's really not much of a desire to sell the properties around the ballpark that could be useful for development. And from what I recall from the town council meetings leading up to the construction of the stadium was the stadium was supposed to be the anchor from which would then build out the area and revitalize the area. And obviously it's beneficial when you have one guy in charge of that whole project, in the sense of they have the most to gain and lose by doing a poor job of each, because, hey, if you don't develop it well or you don't do well on one end, it's going to hurt your investment in the other. Now, if you were to sell one but keep the other, now you have a bit of a conflict there. You're no longer working in sync there, but if it's not being developed anyway, then who really cares? But in any case, back to my main point on developers, which is I'm always concerned that they're just using the team as a means to an end. And I'm not going to say that that's the case here. I don't think there's enough to be able to say that with any sort of confidence. But there does seem to be enough to say that at the very least, some of the interest that he had in the team in the beginning has certainly kind of fizzled out here. And would it be fair to say that this interest has led to that situation?
Yeah. It is a definitely unique arrangement there too. Not completely unheard of, but it is a strange one where, the stadium, there's a lease, and the land around it is owned by the owner of the team playing in that stadium. And I think what really kind of was enlightening, and enlightening in a way where I probably could have started putting some pieces together if I was really paying attention, was last year when I was lightly hooked to a potential owner over there. And I was surprised to hear, I guess, to an extent, despite the fact that attendance has not been good. And I think that's also a key part of this we haven't really mentioned, but that's, almost goes without saying at this point, that they were looking to sell so quickly. It had only been 2 seasons. And this is an organization, by the way, who did not go through COVID, which I think is worth noting. It's not like they were, they had their 5-year plan. All of a sudden they had a year of no profit thrown in and just expense. This is, that is a major thing. Most of the teams that are really struggling right now it's kind of stemmed back from that. But I know that the potential ownership that I was talking to, were basically hard out on it because he was just willing to sell the team, and keeping in mind the team doesn't come with a stadium. It comes with a lease for a stadium. So you own a team. The only ways for profit you have are ticket sales, merch sales, and sponsorships. Cannot do anything with the land around it, cannot charge for parking, cannot, anything else you want to do, any work you want to do, which I kind of indicated the team does need probably a little bit of work to kind of perfect it for pro baseball. They built the stadium partially, I think, there was an article that came out right about the time that was built that says it built very specifically for like independent baseball, but the plans weren't really adjusted. It always has felt like they might have been looking for some college summer ball like they had with the Grizzlies. It's just kind of some odd arrangements. Basically, the ownership group that I had some communication with that was interested, there's just a lack of ways to profit in that location without the land around it. I think it's highly unlikely that Brandon tries to keep that land now. I think to develop that land into what he was hoping to develop it into, you would need the city's approval, and he owes the city money. But that was kind of the vibe in the off season, though, was he's cutting losses on a baseball team after just 2 years and just trying, because the losses seem to have been preventing him from even doing what he wanted to do with the land around it, which is that says something, I think, about one, his priorities, and two, just how things were going at the time. That's just sort of expanding on things that I know about. I know they said to news outlets that they are not intending to sell, or at least Veronica Jones said they're not intending to sell this team. I happen to know that with pretty good authority, there was an owner in town this past weekend, looking, and that's literally like right after this. I hadn't even done the video yet, so it's not like it was mainstream within that area. Like, he was looking, that potential owner, there's a couple of potential owners for it. So
you never say we're looking to sell. It just kills any leverage you have in any sort of negotiation.
Exactly right. I think there's also more to this. I'm deciding whether I want to do a follow-up or not. I very much don't, but I think there is a lot to look into, so I'm still gauging how local media is going to continue to handle things. But the most interesting thing to me, outside of what I already talked about, has to be the weird business history of both Veronica and Brandon is fascinating. Yeah. He's a real estate mogul, and I know that doesn't necessarily mean you have a lot of liquidity. I think Trump had a problem with that at some point. But shout out Atlantic City. But I think it is strange that he just doesn't have like any liquidity. That's bizarre. I don't really know well, now it's a lie. I know a little bit about the real estate he's in, but it's very strange to see. But the big attention grabber, I think, was a lot of the businesses that Veronica Jones has been involved with in the past, which have like limited social media following, limited track record of what she's worked on. Weird, like a lot of like websites with stock photos. They both have a lot of LLCs attached to them. The whole thing seems weird and shady, man. The vibes are so bad, that like the moment I started peeling back the layers on that LLC thing, I knew I couldn't go any deeper on it because I was going to get sucked into that too. So it is going to be fascinating. If anybody chooses to really work on them, I think this could be a real garbage fire. But yeah, man, that's just the stuff I couldn't even get into in the video on that side, but it's going to be interesting. And I think where it kind of brings things home for us is, so what does this mean for the Atlantic League and Gastonia? Like, if they sell, what does that mean? That is a whole other can of worms too. So what I found, at least before I kick it to you, is I found that they might be looking to, it depends on us. I think it's highly likely they sell. I think I think the league may force them to sell. I don't know if they can. I feel like they can. I'm not 100% on the terms there. I think the city probably has some sort of say in this kind of thing. I think at least they can make it very difficult and just untenable to not sell. But I think the next owner would probably look to keep them in the Atlantic League. I think the Atlantic League would need to see certain things to feel comfortable keeping them, because it is also worth noting that they got Hagerstown coming in, and that's going to make an odd number of teams next year, because as it seems Frederick is staying. So, you know, if you get rid of Gastonia, that solves your problem. I know they want to keep expanding. I've also heard rumors that maybe Charleston could be looking Frontier League to solve the Frontier League's Empire State Grays issue. So there's a lot of moving parts here. It creates an interesting balance, but I think there will be baseball in Gastonia next year. I mean, they built the whole stadium for it. I don't see them allowing that to happen. Even if it's 1 year without a team, I think they will be, but they will make it back to baseball there. But there's just so many questions about it, and so many things that the new ownership needs to fix and make right. And like, it's going to be so important to get off on the right foot for them. I really hope they can manage to do it. But I don't see a way that this current ownership group is still the leadership of this thing opening day next year for the Atlantic League.
Yeah, that I think is fair to say. They're just not really tenable. I know from some of the other people I had talked to that it seemed like in particularly skilled markets or skilled areas that guys were being paid even when they were supposed to be paid. Their rate was below market on that. And I asked a little bit on some of them, like, hey, what's the communication structure like over there? And like, what's the marketing like? Is some of the money problem just like they never did a good job, so they never really had a steady income stream to work off of? And it was like, oh, it's all one way. It's got to go through one person. And that's not good when it's like, okay, particularly, and I asked, like, because they weren't in like any sort of a communication section. They were in a totally different part of it. And I won't go much more than that, but I was like, do you know, like, for the comm people, like, particularly marketing people, like, obviously for any sort of campaign, they got to have people sign off on it, but like everything, like, what was the situation there? Like, anything, pretty much everything.
Yeah, everything went through the same person. And like, it was a lot of, we'll do it, and then not action. Like, and that went from, you know, a salesperson who gets a sponsorship deal, and they just need, like, there was a story about basically like Toyota. So it's not just small businesses that were getting screwed here. Also, like, a Toyota got screwed over. Like, they're supposed to do some Target, like a big Target type sign in the outfield down the wall, like kind of some home run promo or whatever it is. And like for months, she was, I had it on her desk. All she had to do, they got the pay, Toyota fronted the money, the part of the deal that was to pay for the sign. Yeah. And then they just never built the sign. They never got it done by like the actual business. And it was all like, even the sign company was ready to go on it. And then when finally they were threatened with a lawsuit, they were just like, oh, and they got some like crappy vinyl sign and put it on the side of a batting cage that was out in the outfield. So there was a lot of that. There's a lot of, hey, that promo is a great idea. We like that. And then they don't execute or move forward. There's a lot of stories of we understand what we have to do, and then there's no movement forward, like immediately making decisions that say the opposite, like almost like just surviving whatever conversation you're at the time, which is something that I think you can see also in like Veronica Young's news appearances so far. And like, look, at a certain point, I became more and more motivated to share this story personally, because I've talked a little bit on here before. I've talked a bit on here, we'll say, about my time in Lexington. Yeah. And I can't even fully express the level of deja vu and like literally anxiety I was getting from like rehashing things I had seen happen in Lexington. Like, it was very much the same, including like delayed paychecks and with like weird excuses. Like they were talking about, in Gastonia, they were like, oh, well, like someone hacked the bank, or like there was an issue with the the payment company we use. And they use ADP. It's like a massive company. It's ridiculous. Lexington was trying to tell the story of some miscommunication at one point between the bank and them because of a holiday. And I was like, you didn't know a holiday was on the calendar? That doesn't make sense. They have how many clients? Yeah. So like things like that, the sponsorships not being renewed. Like, I got a lot of messages from people who were in Lexington last year who had seen the same stuff. Like, it really is. Like, this is almost like the current blueprint for a failing organization. I think if you look into similar ones, you probably see a lot of the same stuff. But this definitely had the different aspect because this wasn't like an owner who was the one with the tight grip on things and sort of playing a shell game with what was actually happening. This was the owner's girlfriend acting as COO, which is just wild to continue to say. But that was it was very similar in some ways and also even more bizarre in other ones.
Which
just
begs,
not doing.
Yeah.
What was that?
I was going to say, which begs the question now for a new ownership that comes in here, because we talked about, you kind of burned over sponsors, both small and large. That hurts the reputation of the team as a whole. Like, obviously cleaning house helps a bit because you can at least say, look, we're different now. Only thing that's similar is name and brand. And part of what I was going to get to with communication being a one-way street is the marketing never got done. So most people don't know the brand. If they don't know the brand, they don't know the team. They don't know the team. They don't come out to the ballpark. They don't come out to the ballpark. You lose two of the best ways you have to make money, which is ticket revenue and then merchandise / concession sales, which by having nobody in the ballpark devalues what you can sell sponsorship wise and also, a poor reputation to say in the business community also is going to drastically hurt what you can charge if you can find sponsors even at that point. And so that leads to the death spiral. But more than that, even if you do get new ownership and new leadership at the top, it's still a very hard thing to convince people of. And maybe, if you have say Pepsi, for example, they're more willing to roll the dice again, even though they have no real need to advertise with you. But maybe they're more willing to. But if you're a small business that's been burned once, you can't afford to take that risk twice. Even being burned once could put you out of business. Twice probably does that. So, that's the next question for new ownership, which is, how do you repair that relationship with the business community? Especially because a lot of what you can do on day one is just talk, right? You can fire the people that should have prevented this from getting to this point. But that's kind of hollow if you're the people that matter as far as dollars and cents go. Until you build up a reputation that's going to take a very long time, you're going to be operating at a loss, and a significant one at that. So how do you repair that?
That's been a lot of the conversation I've had with people as well. Because there is, the amount of conversation indicates that there is, a hunger for that team to be there, whether it's because people want that there or because they're like, well, we spent the money on it. There's a stadium in the middle of town, better be full. That is, I think, part of it as well. I would also, it's worth noting, talking about the communication and marketing, what I hear is Veronica lives in Charlotte, and which is about 20 to 30 minutes away, or 20 miles away, I guess it was 30 minutes, and was mostly advertising to try to get people from Charlotte. And it's they have one of the,
they're a borderline major league market.
It's gorgeous. Yes. So it's a whole thing. But, to the main point we're talking about here for new ownership, I think there's an avenue. I think, between the very public issues being had with current ownership and the city's hunger to not have spent $26 million on a stadium without a professional baseball team. I think there's a chance the future owner can get this thing at a good discount, for lack of a better term. And, possibly even, I would say a discount from current ownership as they just try to get the hell out of there. Yeah. And I think a discount maybe from the city on some things as well, maybe lease to start some things, as, the city is also trying to save face while also escaping, this situation of possibly having this stadium with nobody to fill it. So they might be willing, they're dealing with the threat right now of a stadium that could become very hard to fill, especially as stadiums don't sit empty very well, and they tend to age a bit just doing that. So, they might be willing to eat a couple years of lease payments and hold off how long it takes for them to profit, in order to bring somebody in. So that might knock down the upfront costs if an owner is really thinking things through, and then that way you can really pump money more into the community, all the things that were ignored, essentially.
Yeah.
The community, building trust with a local business, giving very business-friendly sponsorship deals, like things that, where maybe you're not making the profit you probably could be on that deal because you know that you're not spending the money that you might have to otherwise. Cutting the overhead so you can cut other people some break on overhead and start making some things right. And hey, it's also the thing of like, if the team before you, if the organization before you sucked, it's a lot easier to look great, the good cop, bad cop type of thing. So I think there's a good chance. And also the people of Gastonia seem really keyed into where their tax money goes. I wouldn't be surprised too if things are, communicated well, that they might also feel obligation or a want to support this team that, is keeping their stadium that they paid for, filled. And maybe even just to give the finger to the previous ownership, they might want to come out and give the team a shot, and gives you an opportunity to show them what you can do.
That's fair. It gives me two ideas that come to mind. One more serious than the other. The kind of more fun idea is new ownership day one, first giveaway. I feel like again, foam finger night can really work as kind of
That's amazing. I love that.
It's fun. It's kind of got that little double entendre thing going on, and on a oblivious, you don't know what's happening level. It's like, oh, cool, foam finger. And for those that do know, if you put just a fun little saying on there. Or maybe whatever the new thing will be, I don't know, some sort of new era type slogan on there. And those that are kind of in the know, that makes you feel like, okay, we're doing this now.
Yeah. Yeah, I really think there's a lot you can lean into. And honestly, if everyone kind of has that agreement of F those guys, you can kind of have some fun. It'd be and build a whole brand around a new, I just sent you the license plate, a new start thing, literally though, a motto. It's more hey, it's a new start, or a bright future, talking about that kind of thing, and really frame it in a positive way.
True, definitely. And I think that goes to the second point that I have, which is if I'm a prospective owner, if I've made the decision I want to buy this team, I want to get in there as soon as possible to cut any further damage being done.
Oh yeah, I'd want to buy this thing before the offseason even starts.
Yeah, ideally, by the time this is going to go up on the 29th of July, if I can get this deal done, and obviously it's going to be a decent size monetary deal, so I don't know if this is too quick or whatever it may be. But if I can get this thing done before September 1, I would love to have this thing done where I still have a bit of this season left that maybe I'm not able to salvage anything from it, right? Maybe it is a bit of a lost cause, but if I could at least spend September, from which the Atlantic League plays pretty much the length of September, and Gastonia looks to be a playoff team at this point, if I can at least have September to figure out the situation, get a good grip on it, and be able to maybe experiment a little bit. Obviously, September, not a great month for that. Kids are back in school. People are winding down from the summer. You're probably not going to draw as well, especially not on the weekdays. And your weekends, you're going to be competing with more fall-like activities come September. But it is North Carolina. Maybe the climate's a little bit better than, having 98 degrees at 7 o'clock first pitch. Maybe you're more 79, 82, that kind of degree temperature where it's just, kind of nice out. So you still have some ability to try something, even if it's a flawed sample you're working with. To try something new, to get a gauge on what works, get some feedback, at least be in the ballpark and get a feel for how things operate. I'd love to have that month to be able to do that. Even if I could work something where while we're finalizing this deal, I'm able to kind of interject myself into the business so I could see how this is operating, right? Now, obviously that's a much more difficult thing to swing for a whole host of reasons, but the sooner you can get in there, the better. And I almost feel like another idea I had, which goes back to one of the things that we both deeply agree on, which is yeah, you can make money on ticket sales, but I'd be more than happy to give away tickets for free if that meant I could get people into the ballpark to spend money in the ballpark, especially on more, higher margin type items. I almost feel like one of your games early on in this new ownership has to be like a Gaston, because it's Gaston County.
Yeah.
Yep. So like a Gaston County day type of thing where if you go to the ticket window, you show your ID that shows you're from somewhere in Gaston County, you just walk in right for free. Maybe we're a little bit laxer on that kind of a thing, right? Like maybe we don't check IDs, but we say you got to be a resident of this county. And if we start to get a little too full, then we start to crack down on it. But we want to make sure we get that ballpark full because we need people in here. That kind of a thing. We drop the price down. Maybe you do special pricing for residents, things like that. Something that just shows you're making an effort on it. I understand that you have to be profitable at a certain point, but also you're never going to be profitable if you don't win back goodwill. Giving people stuff for cheap, which goes to what you were just saying a minute ago, is a great way at winning back goodwill. And a large chunk of it is with the business community winning that back, but also if you're not winning it back with the actual fan base community, then it doesn't really matter in the end because you still don't have people showing up there, which still, on a business level, devalues your product if nobody wants it.
Yeah, I agree. And I was thinking about like how I would go about this. I don't know. That's just something I do for fun regardless. I just like try to think, okay, if I'm that team, how do I operate from this position they're currently in? And I think, we talked about it. If you could somehow, if you're a potential owner, get a deal done, hopefully a deal where you get a good deal, based on the situation. And the promise from, the league will probably cut you a little bit of a break too, because now they are getting out of the situation probably by you making sure there's literally no lag. You're picking up mid-season on that. City feels the same, whatever. Say you do come in start of September, that gives you 10 home dates. And, I would definitely look maybe even at that Labor Day weekend and basically do, hopefully you got that discount. You can start, not worry about profit right off the bat and do a like welcome party or like get to know you weekend and have myself as the owner there every day talking to fans, talking about what they want, what was good, what was bad, what they want to see here, and seeing how like actually watching how game day operations work. And tickets would be free and you'd encourage people to come out and maybe do some discount food. Don't go crazy. Don't do like it's some sort of special carnival atmosphere because you want people to not be like, well, that was fun, but it was a different type of event. Be like, it's a normal game, but like, it's maybe a more welcoming, inviting, excited atmosphere. And,
incentivize for feedback.
Yeah. And it's so key to get a feel for what the, things actually look like on a day where there's people in the ballpark, because that's what you want. And being prepared for what that looks like that aspect combined with the getting in front of people, talking to them and putting a positive taste in their mouth before the season ends and this chaotic year ends, I think that is more valuable than anything else. So that's how I'll go about it, but who knows? I really hope it happens soon and that they're an open-minded, there has to be open-minded ownership at this point because good Lord, I mean, you got a project coming, but hey, I would also say this too. The fact there seems to be multiple owners sniffing around, I'm trying to think of the last time there was an available, it was probably Gastonia 3 years ago. That's stupid of me to say, but a team for sale with such a new stadium. Like, part of the reason Lexington had to be sold was because they had millions that they needed to do that stadium. You've been seeing they've been working on it all year. But like that means you're buying a team which is millions and buying, all of your league responsibilities and player contracts and all that stuff, plus millions into a stadium. The fact that it basically needs minimal upkeep and maybe, a little bit of adjusting to whatever you want to do, that is, unmatched. I can't think of many other opportunities like that around the country. So I think that is definitely a selling point on them that they have over just about any other potential organization if you're a owner looking to buy.
That is a fantastic point. Plus, there seems to be support from the city for multiple reasons. A fan base that, as you've clearly found out, wants to be engaged, wants to be there, people that seem to care. So you have all that plus the new ballpark, plus the proximity to Charlotte does work. Obviously, you're fighting the Knights. And if there winds up being a major league team that expands to Charlotte, who knows? That could be a factor as well in all that. It is a major outcrop area. There is something you could do to work with that. And there's also the natural rivalry with High Point there that you could play on. And should you get your house in order, you could probably start to do some sort of co-branding thing. Obviously, at this point, I don't think High Point really wants to, be mentioned with them. They kind of like, we'd like to be left alone. We're doing our own thing here. And we're doing pretty well at it too. So there are a lot of positives to Gastonia. And it's just a matter of you need someone that has the patience and the wherewithal to get them to that point. And the only other point I really have on this before we'll move on to a couple other things in the Atlantic League and a couple other things elsewhere is just, as a prospective owner, you're in a very interesting position because you see the amount of work that's ahead of you, and there's obviously a lot of homework you have to do on that purchase there. It's not an inexpensive commitment that you're making, and it's not a short-term commitment either. So it's a lot of money for a long time. So you want to take your time with it and make sure you're making a good investment and make sure you have at least the outline of a solid business plan before you rush into it. But on the flip side of the coin, every day you wait, that mountain gets to be about a foot higher. There's more work that needs to be done. So you have to find and strike this perfect balance between making sure you're not rushing into this and committing to the same mistakes that have already been made and essentially just resetting the clock a year before we're in the same boat again. And then, at that point, 2 strikes. While we may be talking about a baseball team, you don't get 3 strikes at this. So you have to make sure you have everything in order, but you just can't wait to get it in order, which makes me think that those prospective owners from the last off season are probably in the best position to attack it, because I have to imagine they already kind of had an idea of what was going on, and they already kind of had the formings of a plan here. They at least weren't starting at step 1. They were at least at step 2 or 3. So I'm kind of inclined to go with that.
Yeah. I agree. Knowing that owner, I unfortunately think that's one of the less likely options. But we will see. Yeah, that's the one where I'm like, yes, but also, damn. I'm trying to like sort through in my head, because there is also, we talk about the opportunity. My weird concern too is with the urgency from the city and the urgency from probably the league, the urgency from the sellers and an urgency from the buyers. I am so worried that we're going to get a rush in situation where you're like, because it is common sense to be like, well, like whoever is getting involved with this knows what they're signing up for, whatever. But also there's not many professional baseball teams, that go up for sale. And there's a lot of people who would like to buy a baseball team, believe it or not. And I think a lot of people who would like to buy one specifically in a new stadium. And I do worry that we could see someone rush in and everyone to be like happy. Okay, we have a solution. It's got to be better. And, where are we in 2-3 years? So that's what I really don't want to see, is like a what the hell type of ownership buy. Who was it? Oh God, I want to say, was it Lowell? Someone, there was a report not long. I think you commented because it was from like what, Ballpark Digest, and you're blocked by them on Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were tagged in that. That's so funny.
I love when I get tagged with that stuff, by the way, real quick, because everyone's like, what do you think of this? I'm like, I would love to comment on that if I could see what you're referencing.
Yes. Yeah. Oh God, I don't know if I remember exactly what it was. I can't find it, but it was somebody looking to renovate a stadium, and it was a stadium that's currently empty up in the Northeast. I want to say it's Lowell, but God, I'm not 100% on that thing. And they were like, oh, there's like potential owners touring it and talking about renovating the thing, and we got tagged in it, like, hey, what about this potential option? Totally cool. Glad someone tagged me in it, because I would have missed it. And then, like, I swear, I did a little bit of looking into the guy, and he's like some weird, like, I don't know if it was Russian, but like that area,
like
billionaire with like family money, bio story of him with like 20 plus kids with women all over the place, and he's like super eccentric and like but one of those things of like, is he eccentric or is he just a D-bag and like with money? And I'm like that's the problem, is there's a lot of that out there too. You got to be really careful. A lot of people who have money don't necessarily have the sense of somebody who made that money on their own. And that's where we really run into some headaches there. So, yeah, that is what I worry about a ton when it comes to a potential new owner in any of these markets. Bringing it back to Gastonia, actually, at this point, I mean, talking about any market that's looking to expand and build, they're going to have to build a ballpark or whatever, fully renovate something. I do think Gastonia's ballpark is, there's some oddities, as I've said now, but is a really interesting model for how to do it. If you don't know, they have 1,500 seats, but they have like 4,800 capacity, something like that, or 4,500 something.
Okay.
Because they have everything is like either like basically the entire outfield is open concourse way, like wide open concourse way, with a big bar area in the back, like towards center field. They have lots of group spaces, lots of like suite spaces, if I recall, and essentially, if you've been in front office, you know how key groups are. And a lot of nights, like if it's a big night, you can sell a ton of tickets and food packages and all that and make a ton of money off of a group area, and you might run out of group areas to sell. So it's an interesting way to make sure you're profiting, and you can continue to sell tickets even if you sell out your seats. You can keep selling. They've good, like a grass berm to sit on. They got options for people who want to go. I think I would definitely look at the way they went about building that ballpark. I think it's a fascinating way to go about it with, not a ton of empty seats. All the seats are good because they're so close, and a lot of ways to make money off of groups. I do think and this is to the city, I guess, they're the ones who built it. I think they did a good job.
Honestly, write down stadium. I don't even know how to, but like, I'm trying to figure out how to word this on the list of either videos to do or total episodes for the off season of just, I guess, stadium construction or stadium design, because that's one I have a lot of thoughts on. And I think the architecture behind it too plays a non-insignificant factor on it. But I guess let's wrap up the whole Gastonia conversation now, so that way we can move on to the few other things we have for the week. Any final thoughts on it that weren't otherwise in the video or that we haven't otherwise said in the past hour?
No, just, check out the video if you'd like more information on it. And, again, this isn't trashing the employees there, the lower, not low level, but, feel like on the ground.
Just people. Like 2 or 3 people responsible for this, and it's more directed towards them.
Yes, exactly right. So hopefully we can get some good results going for them. That'd be awesome.
All right. So with that said, let's move on to the next topic. Also, you guys are seeing why baseball talk had hit the chopping block this week. This one, I guess we kind of missed this, but it also came out later. So, kind of on us. Wellspan Park was vandalized. It's the home of the Revs. It was early in the month. July 1st through 5th, someone poured a mysterious substance on the field, which, frankly, I think it's probably going to wind up being like Roundup. That's what it seems like. In any case, it basically burned out parts of the field. It's large sections. It's about a third of the field, you'd say?
Yeah, that's fair. Maybe a quarter, something like that.
Yeah, between a quarter and a third. It's noticeable. Extremely noticeable.
And they had to reseed the whole thing. Like not the whole field, but it wasn't small enough where you could just kind of patch. You had to reseed the areas that were affected.
Which in the middle of July is not exactly the easiest feat.
Tough scene, yeah.
Yeah, no, grass is really meant to be grown in spring and fall. That's grass
Not
season.
July, that's for sure.
Yeah, especially not in July, that's the hottest on record. So, not great for growing anything, especially grass that's supposed to host a professional baseball team to what would be that point, a whole half of a season still?
Yeah, just about, yes.
Yeah, so about
you're right.
60 some odd games, roughly?
Yeah, yep, you're on it.
So not exactly great. That's a lot of usage it's going to get, and it's not exactly like the grass that was burnt was only say foul ground or infield grass. There's sections of outfield burned too, so it's high use areas too.
Yes.
In any case, there is a $5,000 reward for information about the vandalism. And the damage I saw at one point was estimated to be several tens of thousands of dollars. I thought I saw at one point the team throw out like it was 100,000 in damage, and I don't believe probably like 30, but even still, it's a lot of money that it cost them. Mm-hmm. That certainly is not a planned expense in the operating budget.
Yes, that is definitely not what they intended to be spending a bunch of money on. What are your thoughts on this, man?
I feel like, again, like I don't know much about it, but I feel like this screams like ex-employee that was pissed off or kids that broke in and vandalized the place. I firmly am on the side of like some sort of former employee. I'm firmly against it being kids because I just think the odds aren't good that kids got in there, and like odds are good of that. I've literally done similar, but that you then would be like, what should we do? Let's mess up the field. Okay, even if they do reach that point, which they could, to be like, let's go get chemicals, which it's a lot of chemical, it seems like. That's what holds me up is the quantity.
To know what to use and to be like, to have the wherewithal to be like, oh, let's go get that and mess it up. From one, that means like someone knows that for sure, which is a weird knowledge to have. And then two, to have the wherewithal to be like, let's go to the grounds crew area and like get that and then spray that. Like, I just think there's too many like weird leaps in that. It makes so much more sense of some sort of former employee because that's so personal. It's so premeditated. And also, there's no talk of a break-in, right? I still haven't seen that. Maybe I missed it, but it seems like no talk of a break-in.
You know, it's not being treated that way. It's just being treated as vandalism at this point.
Mm-hmm. So it is a very accessible field. So if somebody like hopped it without damaging something, I get that.
That's the thing I didn't know because I've never been to York Stadium, so I don't know how accessible it was. But like, it's a fairly easy one if, let's say, you just wanted to climb a fence and hop in.
Yeah, I would say so.
I'm saying obviously you shouldn't do that, by the way.
Easiest, but I'm sure if you were to like walk around, you would probably find one of those weird spots where it's like a wall on the fence. You can kind of work up it.
Okay.
Can you tell I had a childhood? Yeah. Anyway,
you definitely shouldn't try to break into private property, though. Don't do that. We don't want to be liable for that. Don't break into private property, kids.
The tricky thing, so there's a couple of weird ones that stood out to me as somebody who's been there a few times is, I've been there a bunch, but anyway, my point being, weird things about it. One, I feel like they have security. It would be very weird if they didn't have security. So I don't know, maybe they have security footage of the person, they haven't released it, or that person knew how to avoid that. The other thing would be there are a lot of like, I'm trying to find the right word, non-obvious places to like break in or get into the stadium, because if you haven't been there, it's in kind of a cool spot. So all down the first base and like right field side is an old train line that's not used, but there's like a big like some sort of station building or maybe an old like industrial building that runs along that side. And then in the back, there's like a corporate parking lot. And then as you get to left center, that's out in right field. Then into left center, you have like a basketball court in center. Left center has houses. And like that's maybe why the wall is there also, to sort of protect those houses, that famously big wall. But from that whole left field side, so right field has some like blocking to it and not a lot of people around. Like it's not like on a main road. The other one is Arch Street, which is, like a used road, but it's generally just like a small side road and it's got a creek on the other side of it. So there's not a lot of people there too. So I could see if you knew what you were doing and you either had a key, obviously that'll help. Or if you didn't, like, you probably know a way you could get in without, the whole world seeing that you're doing that. Because they must have had some time too, if they felt comfortable enough to go through all this. I don't know. I don't mean to go full true crime on this, but that's definitely what I was thinking. Like, because I love that park. I love that. It's a gorgeous field too. It's a very cool, unique environment for like a kind of a cool mix of new and old school there. So I love that place. I was disappointed to see this happen.
Yeah. See, honestly, I gotta say, I need to see your true crime version of this. I need to see that. That should be your next thing.
Right. I know. I thought about it. I that was my initial thought before I was even doing some accidental journalism doing the Gastonia story.
Because this would be lighter and more fun.
I guess so, until I stumble into some other corruption by accident.
It's actually the team owner.
Oh my God, right? Some sort of weird insurance thing. But yeah, I think the popular thought seems to be former employee, just based on knowledge and potential access. And then, I mean, it must seem more likely than not maybe a grounds person, because that would suggest why they'd be mad enough to ruin the grounds person's work. Obviously you could just be mad at the team and want to do that, but like it seems so aimed in particular. Like you could smash windows if you wanted to also, like they didn't do that.
Yeah.
It just feels like that might be the avenue. I don't know.
Yeah. Cause like the more I think about it, like you make a good point with the high school kids, it'd be hard for them to do it. And that's why like, it's just hard because of the quantity of it. Cause like I said, like it doesn't take much knowledge to know like, oh, I could just throw Roundup or bleach on this and that should kill it. And that'll work. But also I'm thinking like, if it's like high school or college age kids, they're also at the point where they're dumb enough to do something stupid, like write something on the field and not just have a giant burnt out patch or design something onto the field. So, there would be some sort of a mark, and I feel like York is a large enough area where maybe you don't know everybody, but the kind of people that would do it, you'd be like, oh yeah, that would be your usual suspects to start with, and then you could pretty much build out from there. It's not like we're dealing with, metropolitan New York here. So there's that works against it. I think team employee would make sense, but at the same time too, you'd have to assume an organization keeps track of recently fired or laid off personnel for this very circumstance, so that way you have a short list of candidates or suspects rather to operate off of. I almost wonder, and I know this is going to be, it's going to be a little hot takey, I admit, but it would be something if it was a player, wouldn't it? A formerly released player or something like that.
Maybe. Has to be somewhat local, unless they're released in like 24 hours.
That's the thing. Like, if it's a former player that has some sort of beef there, or has beef with maybe some of the coaches or a former teammate or something, because they would know their way around the ballpark, that would make sense. They would have some knowledge of the chemical, I would imagine, just from being around ballparks and whatnot. And I imagine a lot of, stadiums have that kind of thing either laying out, or they just talk to the grounds crew guys because you're around them pretty much every day. So
yeah, and I believe the grounds area and the player area is not overly separated there. That's not something I know for a fact, but if I remember off the top of my head, that's kind of the way it is.
Yeah, so that would make sense there too. You see that guy kind of walking around. If it's close enough to the time of release, you wouldn't really think anything of it. Like, oh, he probably just, if you're security, like, oh, he just needs to go pick up his stuff or whatever. Or if you see him on camera, you're just like, oh yeah, no, he's supposed to be there. Or he could be there. So you have that kind of connection there. Or if you need to do any sort of athletic kind of, action to get into the ballpark, as a former player, or like current player, I guess, but former player on the team, you should have the kind of athleticism to be able to either scale a wall or climb a fence. Like, that's, not crazy to think. So, like, it does kind of make sense, although it would be just so incredibly petty and not at all worth the risk to do that logically it doesn't make much sense.
Yeah. It's really odd. And where it really gets complicated. So I actually feel like they might get the person. I think if it's a former employee, there's a short list to work through for investigating.
Yeah.
Relatively short. It's not like, who murdered this person, and it could be anyone in the city.
Yeah. There's like five people here to work with.
Yeah. And then you look at, if it is a random person, that's a good bit of chemical. So like you can look at, very likely, if they made that purchase somewhere, that will give you a list of suspects as well, because you just have to start looking through local shops or deliveries on that product. And they are chemical testing it, so you should get a pretty specific answer what the hell it is. But if it's not one of those, I think it may be unlikely to get them. But if it fits in one of those two categories, I think this person could be in trouble, because the other thing is that field, like the corner of that left field, is like within 200 feet of the creek there that runs right through York. And like that drains into that. They confirm that in the story. Like that's chemical dumping into what goes into the creek that goes through York. Like that's going to be an issue. And that's where, And I don't know. Like it depends what they jump on and what they don't. If you want to be technical about it, pouring gasoline on your baseball field is also an EPA violation.
Fair.
But I would say this is a far more interesting situation because the gasoline lease was immediately burned. This obviously seemed to run into the field, into the drainage as designed to go directly into that creek.
Oh man, that would not be great. I mean, like honestly though, if you're one of those people that live in the houses whose water goes through that creek, and obviously I would assume, oh wait, that's actually a good point though. Like, are most of the houses over there well water or are they city water?
I don't know. I don't think if they are, I'm not sold that they get the water from that creek.
Okay.
But also I do think that creek probably does eventually lead to...
It has to lead to either...
Right now, probably does lead to some sort of treatment, which is probably being used for something.
That would be my guess. If it's a treatment plant, then it should be fine, because it gets treated through fine.
Oh, shoot. Hold up.
Yeah.
What is this?
Because
yeah, it does lead somewhere. I think it leads to a dam. Well, okay. Not great.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, if it leads to... if it goes to a reservoir... I'm not sure it's drinking
water, though.
Yeah, if it's a reservoir, it shouldn't be that bad. Unless there would have to be an awful lot of it. Otherwise, it should just
I agree. I don't think it's
through. My concern, more or less, is if there's an aquifer at some point. Because if there's an underwater aquifer, then that's a problem.
Yeah. I think
now we're talking.
It probably isn't going directly into any sort of drinking water, but I do think it's still going directly into water. And I think that's where they're going to run into their issue.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's... You know, it would be like the funniest and also kind of saddest conclusion. And then I guess we'll move on to the other things here. But if it was just like, imagine some Lancaster fan that was like, oh, I'm going to punk him. And then wound up doing that. And now is facing like dumping charges on top of like possible EPA violations and shit like that. What they thought was going to be like kind of a harmless prank is now wound up being a borderline felony.
It's Harvey Updike. Yeah, dude. As an Auburn fan, I've seen this happen. Yeah. This is that Alabama fan who poisoned the trees.
Oh, I forgot about the tree dude. Yeah.
Yeah, man. That's hard. He was like, it's just supposed to be a prank. It was because we put an Auburn jersey on Bear Bryant's statue, and that was, how it happened. Really tried to ruin the one national championship that we bought. Good times. But, it was, in fact, here's the other thing. I wouldn't be completely surprised if they didn't use the same thing. It was like spiked ADDF or some chemical. Yeah. I'm betting this person, there is a potential that they're not creative enough to come up with their own thing. Either way, I think that, it's going to be, if they find this person, it's going to be way more trouble than I thought they were getting into. Also don't sleep on the possibility that's a local who just hates the stadium. Like, that's such a real possibility too. Like, I live. Oh my
god! Imagine if it was just like a dude.
2 or 3 miles.
Yeah.
What was that?
Imagine if it was just like a dude that got his house hit by a baseball or something. Like Nelly went deep on one. Even
like I live 3 miles from Reading, Phillies, but like the Fighting Phils, cool guys. They 3 miles, but like I can hear their fireworks from where I'm at. And like they do 40 fireworks nights this season.
Oh Jesus
Like
Christ.
if I'm a neighbor, I don't know how many York does. That's Reading, but like I right around 4th of July weekend.
Yeah, that's
possible.
I mean, that
had knowledge of the stadium. Yeah.
Yeah, if they pop up on like one of the cameras that's walking around there, it's just like, oh, he's a local, like that's what they do.
Wouldn't know where to park because they probably had to like drive over with whatever was going to walk over with it.
Yeah,
chemical.
And suburban busybody would definitely know general lawn care chemical.
Yeah.
I mean, like.
Yeah, man.
Hold on here.
Yeah, York is so accessible. I mean, it's one of those ballparks. I don't know if you've seen one like this, but it's like got the center field drive-in gate.
Okay.
Where like the center field wall has a gate in it that literally you can drive like a full truck on.
Yeah, I've seen those before. Yeah.
Yeah,
New York.
And that goes right out to the road. So like there's a lot of ways in if you know what you're doing.
Oh, plus they got the cannon too.
Oh yeah, man, they got a cannon that many nights a week, dude. All you need is to have a baby that won't sleep I could see that. If I have a baby that won't sleep and you get to sleep and all of a sudden, boom, because somebody went Yahtzee on some like sad 22-year-old, like I could definitely see myself being like, that's it. We're destroying the field. That's it. I'm going to jail for this.
Yeah. I think it's 10 firework nights a year. It's every Saturday. It looks like.
Okay. That's about right.
Yeah.
But every night's a cannon night, baby.
Yeah, and they were away in High Point there, and then they had 11. I forgot to count the 4th of July game.
I was there on the 4th, man. I was literally there. It occurred to me, someone has pointed out too, and it did occur to me, I mean, they shoot their fireworks off on the field. So if there was some sort of weird chemical that might have come from that possible, and, you know, but I don't know. I don't see the pattern that you would think of there.
I like how they have a Spanish version of their schedule too, just as a side.
Yeah.
But... yeah, that also I'm looking at, like, it does look like they don't shoot the cannon off on Wednesday nights. Although they do shoot it off for day games, so I could also totally see a situation where, like, if you're putting a kid down for a nap in the middle of the day, that's fairly normal, and then just one camp day game, some dude tees off on one, the cannon goes off. That scenario makes me it just makes me laugh so much. I just find it funny as hell because it's just like such a realistic possibility. And that's just how that kind of thing goes. Dude. Yeah.
It is so loud. It is really loud. I mean, the entire ballpark, if they're not ready for it, like I've seen people who have season tickets like, do a little like that little like duck jump thing, like head goes down, like shoulders go up. Like, holy God. Like, yeah.
You can't do the cannon on the senior slugger day, though. You do this on the senior slugger day, you're going to have EMTs taking out so many old people because of heart attacks.
Can't have it happening.
I know. But luckily, York pays their EMT, so it's okay. Any case.
Oh, God.
Any case, let's talk about the organization that banned me on Twitter. Or blocked me on Twitter because Ballpark Digest got their mid-season Atlantic League All-Stars up. What do we got? 1 for every position except for the outfield. We got 3 there, plus a utility man, and oddly 4 starting pitchers with 2 relievers and 2 managers, for what that's worth.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. Just running through.
I wasn't big on this. I'm just going to preface it with that. Like, I don't know. I usually do my own All-Star thing. I probably still will at some point, but I've been busy, as we can tell. So, but yeah, sorry if I don't have a ton of thoughts on this, but like, most point, there's something egregious in here. It's just like, okay, baseball digest, ballpark digest, sure.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Weird source for this kind of thing. They're not usually, what I think of when I think of talent appraisal.
Yeah, like they're great on stadium news and like team branding and stuff like that. Pretty good at that. But talent appraisal, I would agree with you on that. Any case, going catcher through utility man here. There'll be 3 outfielders. You'll know them. Catcher starting there. Bo Taylor from High Point. First base, Thomas Dillard. Lexington. Second base, Shed Long Jr. High Point. Only unanimous selection. Nowhere does it say who voted. Nor does it say how many.
Internal league selection. And then they have a partnership with Ballpark Digest because of course they do. Like, why would you not have the most random, like, I mean, again, I love Ballpark. We were just talking about how much we love CMR Coach. I love Ballpark Digest. Sorry they blocked you. But like,
I really wish they don't block me.
WTF association to pick to do your all-star reveal. And it's like such an Atlantic League thing. Just be like, yeah, that's what we'll do. What?
Yeah, they just, they're big in the scene. We'll go with them. It's like, okay, but like, you sure? Like, our Sports Central would make more sense.
Well, yeah, right. Well, I'm sure they also want aggressive coverage of their expansion efforts.
Fair.
Mixed as they are.
Maybe they don't want to, maybe they want to tone that down, but yeah, any case.
I've not seen Ballpark Digest report on that, by the way. Fascinating.
Yeah, interesting.
Funny. Yeah. Funny how the league partners don't.
Someone's about to get blocked on there because I didn't even do anything to get blocked. I'm trying to figure out why I was blocked. But any case, shortstop Trent Giambranti or Giambranti.
Yeah, sure.
All right, we'll go with that. He's from York. Either way, he's playing in a burnt out field.
Giambroni, you got it.
Yeah,
sorry, I was just checking. You're fine.
Yeah. Third base, Carlos Franco, who is formerly of Gastonia, now in the Mexican League. Good for him. His contract probably helped get a couple people paid.
Oh God, right?
Yeah, that's why. And I made the same thing when Gabe got his contract purchased a couple of days ago. I was like, oh, well, this will help the situation.
I mean, no lie. Like, I think just player contracts have probably attributed, the math was like $84,000 to that budget, and they're still not paying people. Crazy.
You could pay off a lot of debt with those contracts, just saying.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, once we get this whole thing sorted out, Brady deserves a raise because he is really putting a lot of money into this organization.
A raise or
at least priority?
Opportunity, my guys.
Like, give him his check on Thursday so that way he can get ahead of the bank rush.
Oh, hell yeah. That's terrible.
It is. See, I really hate to poke fun at this, but like, there's opportunities, and I'm not going to lie, I'm going to take them every time. Any case, get to the outfield. There's Bobby Bradley from Charleston, Leobaldo Cabrera from Spire City. Was he ever in Myrtle Beach?
Yeah, I feel like he was.
Because I feel like I've seen this dude play in Myrtle Beach, and I feel like I have a Leobaldo Cabrera card, and I'm too lazy to go try and...
for past 2 episodes.
Yeah, I'm too lazy to go find my Pelicans media guide, which I have.
No, Myrtle Beach, my guy.
Yeah.
But he was in the Yankee system for a few years. That's what you're thinking of?
Could be. I don't know. There's definitely someone there that has a similar... Maybe it's a different Leobaldo Cabrera. I could see there being multiple Leo Cabreras.
Not that many Cabreras in baseball.
Zach Guerra from Gastonia is the other outfielder.
Sure.
DH Braxton Davidson, also Gastonia. Man, they're noticing a trend here. I'm going to let you pronounce the utility man's name. He's from Spire City.
Oh, yeah, I got you. Marmoleas. Jose Marmoleas?
Yeah, I was
I've been pronouncing it. Nobody sent me a correction.
I'm not going to correct you because I don't think I could. I think that's the best we're going to do here.
Hey, man, I'd take that as a win. It's a perk of being on the spot.
Oh, God. Starting pitching. Mickey Janis, High Point, Stephen Woods Jr., Long Island. Didn't he just get traded? Or am I thinking Tarpley? May have been Tarpley.
No. Yeah, Tarpley.
Tarpley got traded. Okay, I knew it was someone like that, but I saw a deal go through. I wasn't sure which one, but it does make sense Tarpley would be the guy. Any case, Nick Riquette and Mitch Lamson, York and Southern Maryland, although in Lamson's case, he's now in China.
Yeah.
Kind of rounds out the squad there. Relief pitching, Ryan Dull from York and Al Albuquerque from Long Island. Managers are Jamie...
Ryan Dull from High Point. That's all I was going to say.
Oh, okay. I haven't been...
Yeah, you split up a row, I think.
That would make sense, yeah. I was going to say, I wrote it down as York, though, so, that's on me. That's on me. I'm going to
there's a Dull in York, too, I believe.
Okay, we're gonna continue on, because...
Don't bother me now, so just let me... I'm following up on my own. You can continue on.
All right. And then the two managers...
The whole sea of shit getting edited.
The two managers are Jamie Key from High Point and Wally Backman from Long Island. So all of that pretty much makes sense. Pretty much you took your half winners and they got to be managers. So good for them. Odd way of doing the teams. I probably would just said do 6 pitchers in general, but hey, they do them.
So I will interject now on the Ryan Dull point. Yeah. Ryan Dull, that's right.
Hagerstown's name, because now we know the name of the Hagerstown team.
Flying boxcars are a long name. My last point is that I don't necessarily support the Atlantic All-Star team concept. Support the guys on it, but they are being cheap by not doing an All-Star game, and it's hurting everybody. So, okay, good talk.
Flying boxcars, that's the winner. Plays tribute to the construction of military planes in the 40s and 50s that were referred to as flying boxcars. And as I wrote down in my notes, the effing boxcars are set to join the Atlantic League in 2024. See, it's fun because the first one's flying. They didn't think it through. In fact, if you were really to shorten it, you could just drop every letter in there besides the B and the S, so the effing BS's.
If you would like. And, I think that's there. It's kind of how, Southern Maryland, the go-to abbreviation on them is SMD, kind of wild. They're going to want to abbreviate that one carefully.
Yeah. It definitely is. Although I have tried to be good about that, where I go SOMD, but
yeah, I like that they couldn't even do SOM because like Somerset was there. Yeah, I like the history. I think it's cool. They could do some cool stuff with it. This is one where I'll make a full judgment when they see logos and things like that. But yeah, it's interesting. It's hard for me to move on from how good the Hagerstown Haymakers felt.
Yeah, the alliteration was next level.
Yeah, it was really good. That felt really good about that. But yeah, whatever. I got to believe that they know what they're doing, and we'll see. I'll say, talking Hagerstown, I do feel they have a live stream of their ballpark construction.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
Not much going. Yeah, not much going, but I'm impressed by the area. Like, it looks nice. Like, it looks like there could be potential there. And it does remind me that this is a slightly different situation than a lot of the other ones. Like, you know, a team was there and then failed or whatever. Like, this was a weird, they got cut by Major League Baseball. And a lot of it, if I'm correct, which I might not be, I understand, I wasn't in the meetings, but like, it did feel like a lot of the issues came from, you know, not building a stadium, and now they are building a stadium. I know the market wasn't the biggest supporter of the team, but also I don't think it was known for being a bad market. They, for decades, supported professional baseball. So I think there's a good chance that Hagerstown does well. I'm more optimistic about Hagerstown than I have been in a while about Newmarket.
Fair. Very fair. I'm watching this live stream now, and obviously nothing's happening. It's 12:15 at night, but they have made progress on this thing. It does seem interesting.
Yeah, they have. Now, I don't know much about town of Hagerstown. I've driven through a couple times. I don't claim to be an expert, but I hope it's something that can get some potential going, man. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, the Atlantic League needs a win.
They really do, man. It's been a tough go.
But anyways, we got other stuff we got to finish here, so let's get that.
Right.
Switching off the Atlantic League, we're going to go and hit the one thing in the American Association and finish with a bit of Frontier news. We have a contract purchase we got to mention. I originally wrote down a prop about Rocky Mountain's win streak, but then they lost last night after I wrote everything out. So we are down to one prop. Luckily, Lexington's keeping us going. So thanks to them for that. But American Association news, they signed a 10-year partnership deal with PayServe Global, which will now be the exclusive point of sale system for the American Association. This is apparently their first foray into the North American sports market. So they're looking to get a foothold there. I don't know anything about PayServe Global. I'm not going to pretend to know anything about PayServe Global. It seems like a deal that, at worst for fans, is like the system may not be great because it's not one of the major ones, but it could also just be pretty mundane and boring and does nothing. From a player's perspective, I don't really think this means anything. From a league perspective, hopefully they got paid and they're doing a really good job of getting coverage to each of the league sponsors.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of input on this piece of it. Sure. You know, I think it was only released as a press release because it was probably somewhere in the contract.
Yeah.
That's always my vibe on that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Poo-pooing it. I mean, hey, look, as we've learned this week, anytime checks are being processed, it's a good thing.
Yeah. Secure the bag. And there's a reason why it's safe to call them. The American Association is the best front office at the core 4 indie leagues at the moment. There's a reason for that.
Yeah. Agreed.
I think the Pioneer League has some real potential to shoot up, but they're not there yet, and they have an interesting couple of years facing them. So we'll see how that goes.
Yes. To be determined, for sure.
Yeah. So that brings us to the final news piece for the week, and probably the final real major point of the week. This is ValleyCat news. Their all-star closer, Raymond Gudon, has left the team for personal reasons. Apparently he left with little to no notice to the team, and the team was only made aware through his agent. And there is some speculation that maybe it has something to do with either his usage or the fact that his family was originally in town, and then it was shortly after that he left and went home That's all in the article that is linked in the show notes, along with all the articles that we mentioned this week. So, yeah, big loss for the ValleyCats, who are in the middle of a hot streak. They're doing very well right now. I think they're about half game out of first in the East. Probably one of the top 3 teams in the Frontier League and a top 10 team in Indy Ball at the moment. I think it's safe to call them that. So it's certainly a major loss to them.
Yeah, it's a weird one. I don't want to even put out. Actually, Tri-City is now in first place.
Oh yeah, Quebec lost tonight.
Half game up. Yes, they did.
Damn, that's not happening.
So that would be Tri-City now in first place. How was that, man?
Damn.
I mean, I don't want to venture too much of a guess because, the only real input we have is from Pete at this point, and that's Tri-City Media. By the way, Tri-City has really good coverage from the local news, by the way. And maybe that's me really noticing it after the week I've had with Gastonia, but there's multiple, in-depth, they're talking about, transactions and, roster churn. In their news. It's interesting.
Yeah, Mark Singles, I think, is the guy there. He does a really good job.
Yeah. But beyond that, I would say, that's the only source we really have. So, maybe that is what's up. But who knows? It could be something else going on there, too. So, yeah, it is weird to not. I believe that there was not communication. I don't know why you'd throw that out there with, without. Just because, but who knows what the reason was. It's interesting to see. I mean, the usage, because he said, what the agent said something about, there's only so many bullets in that gun. Got me thinking about what his usage was. I tracked down his usage. Not that crazy. He did just recently pitch back-to-back games, but one of those outings was 3 pitches, and there were 19. Okay, so I don't know about that.
22
he
pitches
wasn't
and 2
one
releases,
of Yeah, I think by innings or by pitches thrown, he wasn't one of the top 10 relievers in the league, or by appearances. So. Yeah, I mean, it did stand out. I do wonder, he was pitching really well, and I do wonder if maybe he just said, that's the body of work. Why hang around and get, tagged and, all of a sudden your numbers don't look as good. You can leave with good numbers and maybe under not the best terms, but then you can sell your wares in a way on, to whatever team is looking to buy. And I honestly know that there is there's also a popular philosophy that, you can throw on film with, whatever your Rapsoda or whatever you would like to, track your data and send that data to people. That's a theory out there. So who knows what him and his agent are thinking. So that's also possible. There's so many possibilities on that one. Maybe as many as the York Field situation.
Yeah, but the York Field one's a little bit more fun to speculate on because it's got way more of a mystique to it than this one. But yeah.
Yeah, because it could be could be a little dark sided too. You'd not like to not think this way, but it did cross my mind. I'm could be an elbow thing that he doesn't want to have on the record, and he felt something, and he's gonna go get some rest and maybe a little work on it if he has a way to fund it without the team, where it doesn't have to be officially reported. That's a possibility. There's so many weird things it could be.
Yeah, there is a lot, but
I think that's unlikely. By the way, I'm just saying, if we really drill down to all the weird possibilities, that is one of the weird possibilities.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's a lot there. I will say, though, the conversation that I didn't expect to spring from it that did kind of come to me was the amount of people that had a comment on whether or not this was professional and whether or not Pete was overreacting to it. And it's I'm not going to fault the guy for doing what they believe is in their best interest for their career, especially when they're making $1,200 a month, if that. So, I'm really not going to fault the dude for doing what's in their best interest. Same point in time, though, I totally get where Pete's coming from.
Yeah.
To up and leave with no notice, that doesn't really...
I'm going to say something. It's not like you just quit, with no notice. It's no notice and, literally no, you did not give them any notice that you had quit.
Yeah.
Not
you just stopped showing up to work.
Yeah.
That's some next level quiet quitting is what that is.
So it's funny you say that because it got me thinking about I have had a couple things where I just didn't give 2 weeks. So I was just nah, because whatever happened at that job, I was I'm out of here tomorrow and, left on a couple of ones, but for the most part, I'm a 2 weeks person, but I do think it's the concept's always funny, but I think it would be the concept of 2 weeks notice in your like relief pitcher role is hilarious.
Yeah.
But that did lead me right into the thought of like quiet quitting, and just a baseball player quiet quitting is like the funniest concept of like, sure, I'll like make the 4th appearance in a week, but like, I mean, I'm not going to try. Like, I'm not going to bring the good slider out. Like, they're getting sliders, not sweepers. Like, I don't know. It just made me laugh. Like, sure, I'll work through it. I'll get 3 outs eventually, like, on my own pace.
Yeah, it's like I can't throw any breaking pitches. That's just not going to happen. Like, I could throw a heater with a little bit of movement, but, like, that's the best I could do right.
And just like not staying for extra innings was the next thought I had. Just leaving when it's 9 innings done. So that's my day.
Low key just kind of sneaks over between innings, starts talking to the manager on the other team like, you guys looking for a bullpen arm? Here's my resume. Here's my baseball like, reference page.
If it's one of those ones where you can like see the outside gate from the dugout, the dude's on the other side of the gate just like shooting it with like some rando, just like talking like, yeah, man, like, what you doing after this? All right, like, yeah, I'll come with. Like, no, I'm done for the day. I clocked out. What?
Look, it's 5:00 somewhere, dude. We're done. Let's go.
Facts, man. My life is a Margaritaville. I am living in it, and I mean the chain of restaurants. My life is hell.
Oh, well, that's what you get for uncovering Gastonia's issues. But
shout out Eddie Burback. Yeah, man.
I think
that's kind of what I got on that.
Yeah, that's about it. That's about all we got. We still managed to go over 2 hours, so
classic.
It didn't. I thank God we didn't do any actual baseball talk. Otherwise, we may have eclipsed 4 hours. So
yes,
that's fun. I remember when these shows used to struggle to get to an hour.
Sorry,
that was fun for me to edit, so people can wait. But in any case, oh yeah, contract purchase.
Right.
Yeah, Gabe Kolobitz?
Oh, wait, hold on. Gabe Klobasitz?
One of those is right, probably.
Hold on. Did he get picked up when that happened? How did I miss that?
23rd. Sunday. I remember I tweeted about this. I was like, well, this will help
I was mid-Gastonia. Yeah, that's right. Okay, good for him, man.
Yeah, he goes from Gastonia to the Blue Jays.
Oh, I remember it now. It's all coming back to me. Yeah, that was the Gastonia contract purchase. Right. I couldn't even have time to fully process it. Auburn guy, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
Auburn making 2 appearances. Yeah, man. Honestly, he was good at Auburn. He had a great year at the end. I remember that. He had a good, I don't know. I remember him because he went from Auburn in 2017, and if I remember right, he pitched for Auburn in 2017 again, but Auburn, that Double Days team in the New York Penn League. And it was just like, just bouncing from Auburn to Auburn. It's a dumb thing, but it's this kind of dumb thing that'll stick in my head forever. I think he pitched for Hagerstown too, then that means.
Damn, okay.
Hey, look at us, full circle. Good work, everybody.
Oh, really? Yeah. In any case, wrapping up his stats, no record. 1.13 ERA in 8 innings, 7 strikeouts, 3 walks. Reported to AAA Toronto. So that's that. Yeah, I had crystal ball things. It's Quebec winning the East, which, it seems to be kind of in flux. The other 2 I had that were kind of fun. Great Falls reaches 10 wins in the second half before New Jersey gets to 40 on the season.
Oh, shoot. Great Falls is at 7 right now. Is that accurate?
Yep, they're at 7. I think New Jersey's at 37 or 38.
38 now.
38? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no. Jersey's going to get there. They're playing Empire State.
Oh, that makes it a lot less fun.
Yeah, tough one. Easy money, Poppy. Taking down the plus 550 odds.
Damn. I mean, here's the thing. If only Great Falls played earlier in the day, then they have a chance.
Right. Right.
Time zones,
you're
man.
right. And
time zones.
They're hurting in a couple ways there.
Yeah. And then the last one that was kind of fun was Wes Darville hitting 300 with 2 bombs this week.
Yeah, man, that'll play. Or would I don't know. I don't want to jump the gun, but I'm going to go yes on that. I'm feeling optimistic for him because I've been watching that.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know. I won't go too off, but just I guess shout out. We'll give it a shout. to Tom Dillard with 30 home runs right now for Lexington, on pace for 48. But people aren't talking about the fact that he had 6 at the end of May. So he's tacked on 24 in 49 games, which is silly, dude. Silly, dude.
Man, how soon before it becomes a Duck?
Unbelievable. Right. Oh, my God, I know. But it is, it's been a fun one to watch for sure. In a season that needs it, because they are just getting smacked in the mouth.
Props. I have to kill the Rocky Mountain win streak one because they kind of blew that tonight. But Lexington, good job, boys. I have your loss streak reaches an over-under of 15.5. They're at 13 right now.
And they're playing
York?
Ooh. I don't know.
That's touch and go. They almost won tonight,
York has a tendency to drop third games of series. That'd be my prediction. York wins on Saturday and drops the Sunday.
So they fall short of it. They get to 14 losses.
Get to 14. That's what I'm guessing. That's what I'm going for.
All right.
That's awful. I get some credit, yo. If I nail that one, I'm about it. How about every South Division team on a losing streak right now? Just a weird time frame. Weird like screenshot to get. 3 of them are 1-game losing streaks, but just a weird one to say.
It is. It definitely is. So that's the show for the week. Yeah, that's really all I got. Plugs, you got any that you want to throw in there? I'm sure you got stuff, so do that. And then,
I actually do.
Yeah, it's a pleasant change.
I'm starting to show up prepared. The YouTube channel, obviously the Gastonia video, if you're interested, check that out. Indy Ball Nation. Also posting daily recaps, trying to get a weekend recap up after this. We'll see how that goes after the weekend, obviously. We got some YouTube exclusives. At some point, we're going to have a video recorded and up. The next one, the last one we did was like tier ranking recent rebrands, which now we have to update with the flying boxcars. But I think the next one we're talking about is trying to give our review and like keep, trash, or change every AAPB test rule since I started doing that.
Yep.
So keep an eye on that stuff coming out.
Yeah, definitely there. Fun video idea I also have. We go ahead and we rank possible markets for expansion.
Yes. Oh, dude, already on my list. 100%, my guy. Right. We're on the same avenue there.
Because I feel like we could go ahead, we come with like a list of, say, like 8 of them, 8 to 10 of them. And we have each of the 4 leagues and then just like a trash bin where it's just like none of them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I like what you're thinking here. Okay.
Oh, another cool.
I'm about it.
Yeah, another cool idea that just popped into my head too, which would be great for teaser promos too. But a disposal draft for the Pecos League, but for Pecos League teams.
Oh, like
let's say
them?
Let's say the Pecos League collapses, so now all the teams are free agents. What ones go where, or what ones could conceivably group together to form their own league?
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, I like it. I follow.
Yeah. You want to find any of my stuff, Indy Ball Pod or Indy Ball Report, pretty much on everything. Try those too. On pretty much every platform, although I will tell you now, apparently Stitcher is shutting down. So if you're one of the 2 people that listen on Stitcher, find a new platform because it's shutting down in I think end of August, if I'm not mistaken. So you got to figure that out. So don't go to Stitcher, go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Those seem to be the 2 big ones. Some Google Podcast people and Amazon Music people as well. But we're everywhere. It's just, bigger name ones probably will last longer. So I recommend there. Although I do kind of wonder who's listening to podcasts on Spotify. I do not enjoy that experience at all.
It's me. I'm the one.
You're the problem.
Hi. It's me. Hi.
Oh, God. This reminds me that I had Van Steenstill finally follow me on Twitter the other day.
Congrats. Welcome to the party.
But,
God.
Yeah. Until next time, don't forget to play ball.